in a nutshell, I thought I had met the man of my dreams, who turned out to be my biggest nightmare, who ultimately became my biggest gift, but at the time it felt awful because he dumped me and he went on to marry someone else within a couple of months of us splitting up, that he was also dating at the same time. And I went from being a happy, successful young woman in the world with her own business, doing incredibly well, to feeling like I couldn't do anything. I doubted my ability to choreograph anything. I had a performing arts school at the time, and I called a meeting with my competition team parents and said, look, I'm so sorry, but I can't choreograph anything that's worth putting on the stage at the moment, so we can't do competitions this year. And I think the scariest thing for me was that music had been such an integral part of my life since I'd been 13. And I turned on music and it felt numb. I just felt numb. And music had always inspired me to move and create. And I think that was when I reached a point where I just felt like, well, if I can't dance and I can't express myself, all I could see in the world was everything that was wrong. I remember going out into my backyard, and all I could see was not the flowers, but I could see the caterpillars and the grubs that were eating the flowers. So my lens of how I saw the world was so black and murky that I could see no good. And I struggled on like that for quite a while, and I would put my suit of armor on and I would pretend everything was okay, but it wasn't. And I think I just reached my limit, and I just went, well, if this is what life's about, I don't want it anymore. So I planned to take an overdose. I went and visited my parents, knowing that it was going to be the last time that I was going to see them, but of course they didn't have a clue what was going on, except that they were worried about me. And so I went and visited them, and I remember closing the door and looking back and looking at this door and going, please forgive me and thank you, I love you. Going off and teaching my dance classes that day, and my last class was my absolute favorite class, my beautiful 10 and under competition team. And somehow I got through that class, and as they were leaving, I was also telepathically sending this same message to them. I love you, please forgive me, please, please, please keep dancing. And just as the last few were leaving, I just got so emotional because I love these kids so much. I'm getting emotional now thinking about it. And so I fell on the floor in a heap and started sobbing and thinking I wasn't going to see them again. So they heard, and they came back. A few of them came back and said, what's wrong? And they knew that things were not okay in my private life because we weren't doing competitions, and they were all beautifully supporting me through this. And I just really ushered them out the door and said, look, there's things going on in my private life, and I'll be okay, and it's okay, go home. I got home, I went into the bathroom to find the packet of antidepressants that I was going to overdose on, and I couldn't even find the packet. And then I couldn't find the script. And then I realized that I hadn't even filled the script. I'd only gone to the doctors to appease my mother, who was really concerned about me. So at that moment, I felt like I couldn't even plan my own suicide right. So I was on the floor, and it sounds funny now, but at the time it was really, really, really far from funny. And I was in a fetal position, curled up on the cold tiles of my bathroom floor, rocking myself, going, you are so hopeless you can't even organize your own suicide. At that moment, the phone rang, and I let it ring out. There was no way in the world I was getting up off that floor. It rang again, I let it ring out. The third time it rang, just a gentler voice in my head said, get up and answer it. I still to this day am not 100% certain why I got up, but I think it was because I was concerned that something may have happened to my mum or dad. I answered the phone just before it rang out the third time. It was one of my beautiful parents of my students that I had a very good connection with. And she said, Brooke came home and said, that you were really upset at class. Are you okay? And I didn't lie. I just said, no, but I will be. And in that moment, she knew exactly what I was talking about. And she said, I'm in the middle of cooking dinner right now. I want you to promise that you won't do anything, and I will be there in 20 minutes. And I went, okay. And while I was promising her, I was going, I have no intention of keeping my promise. It's out of character for me. I don't normally lie, but I've just got to get off this phone and come up with plan B and get out of here before she gets here. So I'm coming up with plan B and grabbing my wallet and thinking I've got to have my wallet, my identification, so that when they find my body, they will know who I am, so they can let my parents know, and all these crazy thoughts going on in my mind. And I grab my handbag and I'm bustling up the hall to go out the front door, and the doorbell rang. And it was another student's mother. And she was there with this beautiful big bunch of flowers. And she said to me, we know you're going through a really rough time at the moment, and we want you to know how much we love you. And in that moment, I really got this huge aha, and I remember thinking, maybe I'm not meant to go after all. And he doesn't love you, but all these people out here do. And maybe it's time that you learn to love you instead of constantly searching out here for approval that you're okay. And so that was really the beginning of my transformational process of becoming who I am today. And I wouldn't wish it on anyone to go that low. However, it was obviously necessary for me to build the skills to learn to love myself so that I could then pass on those skills to other people.